Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillahi wa ba'd. Rabbi sharah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbi zidni ilma, Rabbi zidni ilma. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. Firstly, I welcome you guys all to your own university. Thank you for showing up to your own home, and thank you for hosting me. Secondly, thank you for Rehan and the Like Media team for driving me around and bearing up with my requests of smoothies and all this, last minute stuff. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it from all of us, inshallah. Thirdly, I'm really excited that this time the guys that finally beat the sisters, and they're more in number than the sisters. Because every single time, sisters always beat them. So, Jazakallah khair for showing up, and keep up the good work. Or maybe you guys are not married. And you have other alternative motives here. Which happens in ISOCs, I'm serious, man. I went to university. So MSAs are not the most best fun places for sisters sometimes. In my university that I went, it was like a tradition. So you had like a female MSA president and a male MSA president, and by the end of fourth year they would end up getting married. And they would like live happily ever after, and the next one would come, and then and it happened actually 3 times consecutively. So it's like the world is full of strange things. So today what we're talking about is something called the Incy Wincy or the Itsy Bitsy spider. Those of you that want to pull it up, you can pull it up on your phone. The idea is that these lullabies, they have their origin long before civilization started. And in the Greek mythology they call them lulans. So lulans was something that was used to soothe people. So it was something called soothe people. If you look into the Buddhist tradition, when they meditate, what are they asked to meditate? What's the first sound they're taught to meditate? Huh? Om is like Hindu. But yeah, Om is good enough. You're from Pakistan, right? India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. Comme ça? Huh? Yeah.
Yeah, actually like far off.
You really? Where are you from?
Iraq.
Iraq? Wow, what would you say? Om. Should be Allahu Akbar! That's what you should be saying, man. Anyhow, so they teach them the sound of La. So the Buddhist people, they would just say like La, 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 La. And they believe that, this La sound, and when you touch your tongue to the upper palate of your mouth, that's like a convergence of all the meridians and some rocket science stuff. But anyhow, it does spiritual stuff in the Buddhist tradition. And coincidentally, you'll find that even in our tradition, La ilaha illallah, and when children's are, La, 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 the mothers, they sing them the lullabies or something like that. And so lullabies have been there for a long period of time. They usually are based off 2 things. It's either like a tradition that particular culture had, and it was like a constant tradition, and then it transitioned into a lullaby. So it was like a event, people go, shooting star, and people make a wish. So that the star, all the lullabies that came from stars came after that. Or it was like a real event in history that took place, and mothers wanted to make their children aware of that, and be aware, don't ever do this, don't ever do that. So it was kind of like warnings. So like the 3 little mice, which we're going to do sometime this week, tomorrow. The 3 little mice is like based on a real incident that took place in Bloody Mary's time, right? And she killed 3 people, and she made them blind and all of that stuff. So then the mothers took that, and they're like, we don't want our children to have that same end. So these lullabies come from these things. Sometimes it comes from just pure inspiration of nature. And for example, our lullaby today is like spider. So whoever came up with that, nobody knows the origin of who wrote these lullabies. They're just like found in tradition, and they have different variations of them. So it's like Itsy Bitsy spider went up the spout. I was almost gonna do the Indian version of that, but Itsy Bitsy spider went up. Anybody seen the Itsy Bitsy Indian version, where they sing like the Indian? Can you do that for us? Huh? X Factor. They have a table like that and a bottle of water. Just I don't have a mic. No? Anybody else want to give a go at it? No? Okay. So, so Itsy Bitsy spider. So the idea over here is it talks about the spider going up the spout, the rain shoving, flushing it out, It can't go up the spout because a lot of water coming, then sun comes out, the water dries out, then it goes back up the spout. So the analogy over here is that, you're on your path to do something, and an obstacle comes. And this obstacle prevents you temporarily or sometimes for a long period of time to reach to your destination. And what happens? 90% of the people, when such things happen, they change their path and they go somewhere else. But the people that make it to the top, the people that can persevere through those obstacles that come facing headwards onto them, these are people that will wait along, they will fight against the flood to ensure that they can reach to the top. And eventually the rule of thumb in flood is it comes and it eventually goes. But the only thing that stays is your persistence and how you go on. Now, we talked about it before yesterday too, that in order for us to stand in front of such difficult times, how do we face such difficult times? There's multiple ways we can get inspired. One of those easy ways to do that is to read stories of people who lived for an idea, who struggled and went through troubles for an idea, and who died for a particular idea. And history is full of such individuals. Specifically, our Islamic history is full of such individuals who had a particular idea, and they took that idea, and no matter what came their way, they made sure that they went through with that particular idea. The person we're going to talk about today, he was the son of the leader of the fire worshippers in Persia. He was the main person, his father was the main person who was the ruler as well as the religious ruler, kind of like the Pope today. So he's like, the ultimate authority both politically as well as religiously. As well, on top of that, he was responsible for keeping the fire alive because they used to worship that. His son grew up learning their tradition, their traditional way of worship, and eventually rose to the ranks and became the one who was the caretaker of the fire. So his responsibility was that this fire never ever shuts down, because that's their God. If that goes away, then big problems. Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. So he was responsible for taking care of the fire. One of these days, his father, he became extremely busy with taking care of the affairs of the state, taking care of talking to the religious people and political people. And then he was not able to, do full justice to the farms that he owned. And he owned the farms, and these farms were the main source of income for the family. So he asked his son that, why don't you go this week and take care of the farms? We'll appoint somebody else for the fire. You just go and take care of my farms. The person was going on his way to the farm. He heard sounds. He heard bells, kind of like the bell we heard yesterday in the lecture hall, right? Church bells. And he heard those bells, and that attracted him. So instead of going to the farm that day, he went and he followed the sound and arrived at the church. And then he saw people worshiping and people kneeling down, people, with all their, their emotions, some crying, some, singing. And he saw all of that, and it was quite different for him from what they were used to. So they used to simply go in front of the fire and, just put their head down and walk away. That was their worship, and they had great, reverence for the fire in their hearts. So their worship was not a lot of, actions that would be involved. So he saw this. Does anybody know who this person is so far? Salman al-Farsi. Salman al-Farsi radiyallahu anh. He was one of the companions of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he entered the church and he stayed there till the night. He could not leave. Then he went to the priest and he asked him questions. What do you guys believe in? What is your dogma? Your creed? What do you guys do? How do you guys worship? Where did this religion come from? And then he was content that what this religion is on is far better than what I am on. So he decided to go back home. And when he entered home, he told his father that I found a new religion. This religion is the religion of Christianity. And I find myself a true calling towards this religion, because I find that their ways are much better and more closer to worship than the ways that we are on. His father, obviously, imagine, he is the religious leader. Imagine a Pope's son comes and says, I want to leave and become the Imam of Haram. Right? That would be like you get locked in the dungeon down there, boy. You go nowhere. And that's exactly what Salman Farisi's father did. He told him that you cannot leave the house. But he recognized that Salman's desire and the burning fire that he had inside to move on to this new ideology was too powerful, so they chained him down in the house. And finally, Salman Farisi, he somehow figured out a way to pass a message on to the Christian people that I'm interested in your religion, I want to convert, but if I convert in this land, I won't be able to stay. So can you tell me when the next caravan leaves? So I figure out a way to leave from my house and join the caravan and go to where? Sham, Syria. Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, all that area used to be called Sham. And that's exactly what happened. Somebody told him that the caravan is going on this day. Since he was the son of the leader of the fire worshippers at that time in Persia, he was easily able to convince. They convinced him, and one of the servants came and opened his shackles, and he was able to run. He ran, joined the caravan. He arrives in Syria. Once he arrives in Syria, he asked them, where is the main leader of Christianity? The usquf of that time. Where is he? So they told him that he resides in such and such church, and he went and he visited him, and he told him his story, that I came from this land, I'm the son of so and so, I found your religion to be the best religion so far, and I want to accept your religion, and I want to be in your servitude. I want to serve you, the church and you. And obviously when they saw that, when the usquf of that time, he saw that, such a sacrifice the person has made, he's left the life of lavishness and luxury life and stuff like that, and he came and sacrificed it for joining Christianity, they allowed him to stay. As he was there, he recognized that this usquf, this priest, was an extremely evil person. He would tell the people in masses that give in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give in the way of Allah, and he would take all that money, hoard it, he would put it in his dungeon, and he had piles of golds that he had collected over the period of time. Time went on, and this person, he passed away, and Salman Farisi is still with him. And as he died, people came to revere him. So he's dead, he's their priest, he's their leader, and they came to revere him, and they were all crying and sobbing. And guess what happens? Salman Farisi comes out and he tells them that this is an evil person. They got even more angry at him, because you're a stranger in our land, how can you tell that our priest was an evil person? He said, I'll tell you the location of where he has kept all the gold that you've given, everything that you guys have given. And then he takes them to that location, and they recognize that truly that guy was an evil person, so they take his body and they hang it and they throw stones at him, and they did not give him any burial. The next guy that came, the second usquf, he was truly a genuine person, and he worshipped Christianity, but more importantly, he really worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, he was a true worshipper. So it's like so how Christianity went through different changes in their creed, he believed in the true creed. So he did not believe that he was Jesus was the Son of God. He did not believe in that. This usquf stayed with Salman Farisi. He stayed with him until the time came that he was about to die. So he asked the person that, who should I go and give my servitude to? Who should I spend my time to? Who is the closest? He said, I do not know of a person that lives in Sham who is on the true religion, except a person that I know that lives in Mosul. Recently they had attacks in Mosul and that place in Iraq. Except a person that the only person I know of is in Mosul in Iraq. After the death of this person, Salman Farisi, he packed up and he went to Mosul. When he came to Mosul, he met that person, and he sat with him and he spent time, but he was already very old. So he didn't live long until he passed away too. As he was passing, he said, who can I go to? They said, there is another person that lives in Ammariya, another city. Go to him. For verily that's the only person we know that is on true religion. He went to Ammariya and he found that particular person and he gave his servitude, he worked for him, he served him and he learned from him. And then time came that he was about to die. So he asked, he said, who's there that I can give my servitude to after you? And the person responded back and he said, there is nobody on the face of this earth that is on the true religion, the haqq, anymore. But let me tell you that there is going to be, in a short period of time, we are at the verge of coming of a new Nabi. This Nabi will come from the land of Arabs. He shall migrate from his own country, his own land, to a land that is filled with palm trees between black mountains. Today, if you go and type Google Maps and type Medina and zoom out, you can actually see that. You can actually see the belt of green dates, and then next to it is like the black mountains. It's literally black. Like when you go on Google, you're like, wow. And the description that that person gave was so descriptive at that time. He said, one of the signs, I'll give you some signs for this person. If you give him a gift, he will eat from it. But if you give him a sadaqah, he will not take a bite from it. And he has a seal at the back of his, between the shoulder blades, right where the spine is, right in between, there is like a bump. And on that bump is like hair, kind of like the hair of a chicken, you know, when the chicken has that thing. So it's got like, you know, a hair standing out like a chicken formation. So it's not a chicken, but like, so it's like that. So you have a bump, and on that bump, it's like a little bit raised, and then there's like a line of hair, like, you know, as if it's like the head of the chicken. And if you find him, then stick to him, for verily he is the last Nabi. Now in Ammariya, Salman Farsi stayed for a good time, so he had collected, you know, goats, cows, he did some trade here and there. So he found that there is a caravan from Arab tribes coming from the Arabian Peninsula coming, and they were called Banu Kilab, okay, the sons of dogs, right? And they were known for a reason, and you'll understand why. They came from the tribe Banu Kilab. He met them and he said, are you guys going back to the Arab lands? He said, yes, we are going back to the Arab lands. He said, I would like to join you. They said, we can't take you like this. You have to give us something. So he said, take everything that I have. All my wealth, take it. Just let me go. Take me with you to the Arab land. So they took him and they took all his, you know, his cattle and sheep and everything they took. And on the way, they took a detour and they went towards the Medina route. And they sold him and all of his cattle, because they had no need of it, to a Jewish person. And they sold Salman Farsi into slavery. They tied him up and sold him into slavery. But as he was entering, you know, so the master, he took him, and now he's taking him back into the city. And as he entered, he saw the date palms. And he looked to the left and he looked to the right, and he saw the black mountains. And he became so happy from joy. And then he decided to stay in as a slave and wait for the time to come for this Nabi. Long story short, one of these days Salman Farsi is working in these date palms for his Jewish master, and he's on the palm tree on top trying to cut the dates off, when one of the other Jewish leaders comes in and he says, have you heard what Banu Qila? Banu Qila was like a, you know, a mocking name that they gave to the Arabs. So the Jewish people gave like a mocking name to the Arabs living there. Banu Qila, the people that spread rumors. So he said, have you heard what Banu Qila are saying? They're dancing around this guy that came from, you know, the Arab lands, from Mecca, And he claims that he is the new prophet. And Salman al-Farsi, he was there and he heard this, and he mentioned himself that I almost fell from the tree from joy because I came this far for this particular thing. So he comes over there. He gets down and he says, comes to his master and he says, what did you just say? Can you please repeat? Who came? What came? And he's inquisitive about it. And his master slapped him. He's like, you're a slave. What business do you have with this? Go back to your work. Then Salman al-Farsi, he took some dates at night and he figured out where the Prophet ﷺ was. He went and he gave those dates to him. And he said, these are sadaqah. Please take them. And he waited in the majlis to see if Prophet ﷺ takes a bite from it. He didn't take any bite. Next day he came and he brought some dates and he says, these dates are a gift for you. And the minute it was told that these are gifts, Prophet ﷺ took a bite, took a piece of date from that. So now imagine the excitement of Salman Farsi, right? Like 2 of the signs are there, the date palms, the black stones, everything is good. One last thing is left. The chicken. So he's after the chicken. So he sneaks out of the farm and he goes and he finds Prophet ﷺ one of these days wearing hullatain. Hullatain is like a libas, like a dress, kind of like ihram for guys. So you have like 2 pieces. Hulla means 1, hullatain means 2. So a dress made up of 2 pieces of cloth. So it's like you would put something underneath, like an undergarment, like your underdress, and then you have something on top. But it's a more filling libas. So he was wearing hullatain and part of his back was showing, but not all. So Salman al-Farsi, he's like, trying to sneak, figure out like if he can somehow see that. And Prophet ﷺ, he was in Jannatul Baqi, he was bearing one of his sahabas. And as soon as he finished, he recognized what he wants. So he took off his upper garment. And as soon as Salman al-Farsi saw that, he went and he started kissing it. And he said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. And then he told Prophet ﷺ his whole endeavor. And the interesting thing was, as soon as Prophet ﷺ heard, he said, bring all the sahabas. And he told them, tell your story to every single sahabi, how you came here. Now, most of you may have heard this story, some of you might be hearing it the first time. The purpose of these stories is not that we hear the story, the purpose is what do we learn out of these stories. So we'll backtrack and we'll try to get some lessons out of this. Firstly, notice how Salman al-Farsi, the minute he sees that, he's on something, but he found that he saw the Christianity, he saw the Christian beliefs and the way they worship, and he found them in his fitrah that this is better. He did not resist. He did not say, you know what, I believe in this, I found my father on believing in this. Hence, you know what, I'm not going to even bother about it. So sometimes what happens is you find, Muslims, they're born in a specific type of religious Islamic inclination. I don't want to mention names, but you guys are aware of all the names that exist, right? They are in, they start with S and end with an S, right? So you're either here or there, two spectrums, all right? But one of my friends, he used to call them, they're the double A dilemmas. Anybody heard of that? Double A dilemmas. So they're the people that have a dilemma of aqeedah and the people that have the dilemma of akhlaq, right? So this classifies the 2 extremes that we exist. So this extreme only worries about akhlaq and who cares about aqeedah. There's like only aqeedah, who cares about character. So, and everything in between. So, bottom line, that he recognized that something is better and he did not resist. As humans, as Muslims, as intellectuals, have an open mind to new things. Don't close your mind to different things. When I say have an open mind, I don't want you guys tomorrow look into Christianity and it's like, oh, mashallah, religion, great, man. No halal, haram issues, do whatever you want. Well, my nature calls me towards it, And no, our nature today, the fitra, the innate nature has been really, there's a virus in our, fitra or our nature. So we cannot make those judgments. But what I'm trying to say is, have an open mind in a sense that don't close yourself off with the other narrative. Always listen to the other side. Nothing's going to happen to you. No virus is going to come into you. Try to understand where the other person comes from. Oftentimes you have these debates, should we follow a madhab or not? Some say you shouldn't, some say you should. But have we ever taken the time to understand why the people who say you should follow madhab, why does it say that? Not just layman people, but they're scholars. And then you may want to sit with scholars that, say, and then you find yourself that, okay, fine, they both have valid arguments, and you can have this, discourse in selves. But notice that when he found something new, he did not use his own brain and start making his own decisions. He went to Syria, the main source of the religion. And he traveled from Persia all the way to Sham to get to the source to figure out that, is this really what I really want to be on? Not just, the imam of my masjid told me that. That is not enough. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the qualities of a believer, that they do not fall on the verses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blind and deaf. MashaAllah, Sheikh said, Sheikh said, surah. It's the verse of the Quran. I have to follow. Right? And all the people that are today in trouble, they have no problem killing other people. They all use verses of the Quran too. Okay? So use intellect, but make sure that you have scholarly advice next to you. Make sure that you find a person that you genuinely believe is somebody on the haqq. You genuinely believe that is an educated person, he has the right credentials, and then try to stick to his advice. Because in the matters of religion, when we start playing with our own, intellect, it could lead to problems. So Salman Farisi found something interesting, but he said, wait a minute, I need to get to the source of this. It's interesting. I find it very attractive. I find it better than what I'm on. My nature is calling me towards something like this. Let me go to the source of it. The second lesson you get is, notice Salman Farisi, he's made it in his religion. Analogy, but he's the Mufti Mink of Persian Empire right now, right? He's you can't get higher than that. Every single person that's going to come to worship is going to see you. You have achieved super fame. But sometimes, even if you've achieved that fame, even if you've achieved that high level, you recognize that you are wrong and you come back. And very few people, very few Islamic scholars in the public sphere have done that, where they claimed or they called to a certain calling, and they realized after a period of time, maybe 10 years, 15 years, they were wrong. 10 years ago they were wrong. And this is completely normal. Actually, what's abnormal is if you're still on what you were on 10 years ago. That is abnormal. Salaf, Abu Hanifa, the four Imams, they had early Imam Shafi'i. What he was in Iraq was different than what he was in Egypt. The fatwas he gave in Iraq were different than the fatwas he gave in Egypt. He grew. Spider-Man. He grew. Right? So do not stop your progress. Do not stop your intellectual growth in Islam. But if you find yourself that 10 years, I literally meet some brothers 10 years ago and till now, they are holding on to what they were holding on to 10 years ago. There's no development there. And that's what you find in Salman al-Farisi, that he has reached the top and then he recognized, listen, this is not right. I need to look for something better. And he went towards that. Third lesson we find is, look at how his father reacted. Look at how his father reacted. He reacted to this, rather than having a discourse and trying to bring him back, he used force. Many times, if you are parents, if you're not parents, that you have parents, and you've seen that where your parents are not too religious and you decide to wear scarf or hijab, or you decide to grow your beard, and the father is like, beta, if I see another hair on your face, this is the last day you and I will talk, right? And this happens. It really is taking place. force will never bring people back. With force, you will never be able to change somebody's opinion. What is required for us is to have a dialogue with people. Now, the next part. What you find is sometimes, look, he went all the way, and when he arrived, he's at the leader. He's at the leader. He's staying at that usquf, and this usquf is not a pious person. He's a culprit. He's a crooked man in his mind and his actions. But he did not say, "Whoa, man, this religion, you know what? Forget about it." Look at the guy. The leader is like that. If the leader is like that, why do I need to follow this religion? Let me just go back to my own religion. He actually believed in the aqidah or the principle or the philosophy of the religion. So he did not let the actions of even the leader of that religion fog his understanding of the religion. And many times we get dispelled from Islam by just sometimes actions of some of the Maulvis or Imams. And that becomes our excuse to run away from Islam. Oh, all Maulvis are like this, all Imams are like this. They don't understand us like that. No. We're intellectual people. You guys are studying in universities. Do not let the actions of other individuals decide how you're going to react. Rather, you're a smart person. Use your own common sense. Understand the philosophical discussions. Understand the religious discussion. Read about it. Talk to people. But don't let actions of one or two imams or one or two religious person that you got repelled off from. Don't use that excuse to say, I'm not a practicing brother anymore just because I met this, and then you give that whole story to every person. Next thing you notice that when he goes and he finds the next person, he finds the second usquf, the second priest that came. He was a pious priest. And he died. He could have easily said, you know what? My quest is done. I don't need to do more. I came from Persia. I met one guy. I met the second guy. He's a really nice guy. He taught me a lot of knowledge. And you know what? I don't need to proceed any further. Rather, he recognized that in order for him to stay on the right track, he needs to keep himself accompanied with people of that caliber. And that's a lesson for every single one of you over here, especially in the universities. If you want to stay true, and if you want to stay true to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you don't want to fall into major sins, always keep yourself with other sisters or brothers. Sisters and brothers. No, Sheikh said, sisters, brothers, man. Allowed in Islam. The next thing you know, you have WhatsApp groups happening, sisters and brothers. So, always stay in company of another sister. It's always hard for you to do a sin when another sister is next to you or another brother is next to you. It's difficult, it's not easy. And the better you choose that companion, the easier it is going to be for you to stay away from sin. So notice how he's there and he recognizes nobody else on this haqq anymore. And he says, where's the next guy? He tells him, you got to walk from Sham, Syria, all the way to South Iraq. And he didn't say, man, that's a ride. Today we have cars. Sometimes the lecture takes place, 1 hour away, and you're like, it's too far, man. So another thing we find is that thirst for seeking knowledge never stops. He didn't say to himself, I have reached ultimate, I've reached, alhamdulillah, and now I don't need to seek further. Now I should become the priest. Right? I should open the monastery and, allow people to come to me. I've seen that in specifically people who are really famous in the da'wah scene, and I've had sometimes pleasure to sit with them, discuss with them. And one of the qualities that I've always found in all of them, without mentioning them, but some of the really famous ones, their thirst for knowledge. They have reached such high level, and I remember one of them, such high level that if they decide to announce a lecture, for example, anywhere, you probably get 10,000 people that will just attend. And I was with them in Makkah, and some sheikh came, and pen and paper, and they're there. They're like, I need to get whatever, I need to grasp whatever knowledge I can from the sheikh. The second thing is a person who has thirst for knowledge. You always have questions that you want to ask. You always have questions that are bothering you. But if you don't have a burning question that is bothering you about belief, about Islam, about fiqh, then you're not thinking enough about your own belief. Look, these decisions that Salman al-Farsi took cannot be taken by a layman. It didn't happen in a day, he was sitting there burning fire. Oh, let me just jump to Christianity. Oh, then let me just go to Iraq. No, it was discourse, discussions, dialogues that he had with him. Oh, we don't know that. But for sure it took place for him to make those decisions. And sometimes what blocks us from making those decisions are our cell phones and our Facebook and our Twitter and all the clutter, information clutter that we have in our head. It does not allow us to think straight, to be in the moment sometimes. Has it ever happened to you that sometimes you're reading and then you read like 10 pages and oh, what happened? And you go back. Like, oh, I was reading, and you were reading, but you were not here, you were in a different land. Or sometimes in a lecture, the people they're like this, sometimes they're like, and then like, hello, what happened? It's like, and he's like, they go into a different world. This happens because our mind requires quiet moments. That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us salah. But unfortunately, salah also sometimes has become just a repetitive ritual for us, and it does not allow us to disconnect from this world. So use these tools that Allah has given you. Think about life, think about these questions the way Salman al-Farsi did. The next thing, notice how Salman al-Farsi, he finally arrives to the last person. He tells him that you're going to have to go to some Arab land. In those days, Arab land meant the whole Arabian Peninsula. He didn't say to himself, I wish he had told me which direction I had to go. Man, and like imagine, he's like, where do I start, man? Where do I start? He had belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, number one. Number two, he took action. Many times things that prevent us to be successful in people is that we know what we need to do. It's in front of us. Maybe it is clear for me, I need to get to the top of those stairs. But what happens is the only thing that is clear for me is stair number 1, 2, and 3. I don't see anything beyond stair 3. I don't see a plan. I don't see how we're going to reach to that. I see the destination. I see stair 1, 2, 3, but I don't see the rest. 95% of the people, what do? They just drop their handkerchief. Khalas, it's over. We don't see a clear path. We can't do it. Not possible. But people who are like those spiders, they tread step number 1, step number 2, step number 3, with a sound belief and tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that when they reach step number 3, Allah will show them step number 4. Zig Ziglar, very famous personal development guru, he said, you know what? When you don't see how you can reach your goal, walk as far as you can see. And when you get there, know for a fact that you will be able to see further. And it's true. For you to be able to see what's beyond step number 3 is easier for you when you're standing on step number 3 than when you're on ground zero. True or false? Right? The closer you are to the unseen, the closer you are to what you cannot understand, the easier it's going to be you to figure out things. And that is an advice that I give sometimes to ISOCs, to young growing organizations, that they have great dreams. They have great things they want to do. And I know some organizations, they've been planning some project, and you meet them after 2 years. What happened with that project? Well, we're still, brother, we're in the planning phases, it's working, it's garbage. Like, what did you guys do? Nothing. It's just talk. And talk is easy. It's the easiest thing you can do. You don't even need to come here if you want to talk. Look at me. I can talk all the time. Actually, I get paid to talk. My work, my full-time work, not here, but my full-time work, I get paid to talk. So I go in front of people, you have to have leadership in your company. Great, thank you, check. Right, so I get paid to talk. So in any case, Talking is easy, but what's more difficult is walking that talk. So look at Salman al-Farsi. His conviction is he needs to accompany himself with these type of people. No matter what happens, he's going to get to that destination. The first Arab caravan that comes in, he's willing to sacrifice everything he has. He's willing to sacrifice everything he has. And what we learn over here is people that once they're sold to an idea and they're willing to do whatever is in their power to make that idea come into reality, these people actually win. Any of you heard of RAS in Canada? RAS, the big conference, one of the largest conferences that takes place in Canada. That idea took place in my car. We were sitting, bunch of 4 guys. We said we're sick and tired of these Islamic organizations. No offense to any of them, but we are tired of you. But no offense. So we're sick and tired of these, old Islamic organizations. And we want to do something that is not attached to any Islamic organization. We want to do a conference, we want to bring speakers, and we only had a month to plan for it. And I remember I sat there with the founder at that time who brought us the idea, Fauzan, and I told him, bro, it's not going to happen. I was one of those, I'm like, no, are you crazy? Where are we going to get the funding? Are you crazy? And you really think, you're going to be able to pull this off? And he's like, yeah, man, I think there is a market for it. And people are tired of organizations or conferences. They claim that they're going to start at 9 and they start at 12. And they'll end at 9 and it ends at 12 with a beautiful fundraiser at the end. That takes away all the spirituality that you learned that day, right? So it's going to happen. And it happened. And it happened on a small scale and eventually it grew. Today it's the largest conference in North America, right? It started with a small idea. Bayina started with a small idea. One person, right? Any of these things. But the thing is, what we fail to recognize is each one of you is capable of doing whatever you can in your lives. But the thing is, we do not do it the best we can. See, successful people, they do whatever they're capable of doing, but they do it the best they can. And what this allows them to do is it allows them to polish their skills and help them grow. I know individuals that are that are teaching on the ground, for example, nobody knows about them. But if they carry on teaching the way they're teaching today, small, 5, 10, 15 people, whatever they can do, they will eventually reach somewhere. Okay? The next thing, when he gets sold into slavery, look at his greatness and his desire to get his idea, his desire to get to his destination. That he's willing to sell his freedom so that he can somehow reach to his destination. How many of us are just willing to sell our, not freedom, our comfort? I'm not asking for freedom. Just to sell our comfort towards an idea that we believe in. It's extremely difficult. And specifically an idea that we don't get any money out of. Specifically an idea. A lot of us are willing to sell and sacrifice our comfort, and we come to universities, we leave our families behind because we want to learn and we want to get a degree because we see, the trivial dunya ahead of us that we might be able to be successful people in this dunya. But how many of us are willing to sacrifice similar type of a sacrifice for the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The problem is not in the community. The problem is in each and every one of us, including myself. We're not true to the cause. We're not true to what Allah has all the gifts and resources that Allah has given us. We're not utilizing those resources to the best of our ability. And when we recognize and when we realize and when we do this, only then one person rises and the second person rises and another sister rises and slowly the community as a whole rises. I'm not a big fan of conferences because conferences are just a mirage. They take place over 3 days and they end. What's really more difficult to do is take a sister or a brother or take somebody and teach them for next 15 years so that after 15 years they become one of the key fundamental cornerstones of that society. My Sheikh that I studied with in Ahsa, his teacher, Sheikh Ahmad Saleem, He was the greatest Shafi'i scholar, Shafi'i fiqh scholar that lived in the modern times. He passed away last year, rahimahullah. And I had a pleasure to meet him. And when he came to Ahsa, no religious activity was taking place there. There was no ilmi thing going on. There was no al-Maghrib type thing going on. Nothing. Al-Maghrib, al-Kawthar, there's nothing like that taking place. It was just like khutbah, Quran halaqah, the traditional boring stuff, right? And that's all it was. So he decided, and this is a true person that I met, he left Saudi Arabia, he went to India, and this is quite, like he died at the age of 97. So I'm telling when he was 20s, right? So he took a ship, got onto a boat from there on a ship, and went to India, stayed there. He was a good reciter of the Quran, so he recited the Quran and Taraweeh and stuff, and then in the end he would, also learn ilm with the scholars of India at that time. And then he came back to his country, and he recognized that there is no platform for him that he can deliver. Nobody's willing to listen to him. Nobody's willing to give him the platform. So what did he say? He's like, okay, you know what? I'll just become a carpenter. I'll just do whatever I can to make a living. He selected 8 to 10 people of the brightest caliber in that community. He selected them and he sold them. Assalamu alaikum. How was the dinner? Was it fun? Huh?
I wasn't at dinner.
Oh, I thought you were busy with dinner. Somali food. Beef suqar. You probably had Italian, I don't know. So he dedicated and he brought these 8 people, and for the next 30 years he would teach them every single day for 2 hours. Before Sheikh Ahmad Dogan passed away, his madrasa, his institution, there's no physical institute. Nobody asks for money. Nobody gets paid money. Everybody's got their full-time jobs. This is something they're doing part-time, and it is phenomenal. And what they do is, each one of these teachers, now they are professors in universities for science, English, whatever, different subjects, but they're ulama on their own. And they come back from work at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and in Asr, every day they give 2 hours back to the community. The whole, these 8 people, they've created a structure. So a child comes in from grade 5 and he enters this madrasa, and it's like a cascading model. So the guy above this level teaches the guy below, and these teach the guy above, and it's a cascade. So the guy on the top, Sheikh Ahmed, Sheikh Abdulillah, and the 8 people, they teach like 16 people. Those 16 teach like 32, and then those 32 teach 64. And that madrasa has around around 400 student body today. And they go through their normal schooling system, and by the time they get to university, they've all become ulama. Ulama that are ready to go back and infiltrate the societies. They're ready to make tangible difference within the community. And the interesting part is, Sheikh Ahmed Dogan, he never got to, he never lived to see the first batch of graduates come out from his movement of these 8 people he took. It took him 30 years. But consistency, constant consistency, led to these 8 people. These 8 people decided to build a structure. They started teaching, and he died before the first batch was able to come out. Or maybe they might have come out, but he died before the whole project flourished fully. So when you live and die for an idea, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will be able to see the results or fruits of this idea. It might be that you might be able to plant your idea into 5-6 people. And later on, these 5-6 people may take on your vision and do what you're not capable of doing. If you have an idea, but you don't have the capability, does not mean that you stop there. You take this idea and you give it to somebody that is capable of taking that idea. And know for a fact that every single thing and every single ajr that person is getting, you're going to get a full bank account balance in your account too. In the end, Salman al-Farsi, he finds Prophet ﷺ, and he's really excited about it. And then what happens after was really interesting, that Prophet ﷺ told the Sahaba, that let's do a mukataba. Mukataba is like an agreement between the slave and the master that I want to get freedom and I'll get my freedom based on X amount of money. And the Sahabas, they all collected the money for for Salman Farsi. And after that, Salman Farsi, he attained his freedom. Prophet ﷺ used to say, the Sahabas, the Ansar, they used to say, Salman Farsi is from amongst us. Ansar. The Muhajirin, no, he belongs to the Muhajirin. And Prophet ﷺ would respond back, no, he belongs to us, i.e. the family of Prophet ﷺ. And the story ends. No more stories for today. If you guys have any other questions or comments, you guys can come up. If you have like quick questions you want to ask, otherwise we'll wrap up. And if you want to ask private questions, you can ask. I do not answer fiqh questions. Even if I know the answer, I'll tell you, go talk to somebody much more knowledgeable than me in fiqh. But if you have questions pertaining to seerah, life, personal development, easy stuff, not difficult, I can take that, inshallah. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.
Keep the faith.